Man, the Chicago Bulls have been winning again recently, and it seems like nobody knows really what to make of it. And somehow things have only gotten more confusing with the Chicago Bulls' recent win streak. We're going to talk about the power rankings, how they have the Chicago Bears ranked. We're also talk about Modest Buzelis finding that star level upside yet again, and how the Coby White situation is really going to say a lot about what this front office's plans are. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag on this Christmas edition of Chicago Bulls Central. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content. Before the content, though, Merry motherfucking Christmas, man. For everybody that celebrates it, happy holidays, and just overall, even if you don't celebrate the holidays, have a great time being off work and enjoy some good food, right? Because, everybody has a different thing they do over here. So I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in even throughout this. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. And I just want to, we're going to do our normal show and go through Bulls topics, man. The first one that I wanted to talk about is the power rankings. The power rankings have the Chicago Bulls all over the place. This dropped not too long ago. And when you look at these power rankings, ESPN has the Chicago Bulls at number 19. Bleacher Report has them at 23rd, and NBA.com has them at 25th. And what that says to me is nobody knows what to make of the Chicago Bulls, right? After a 5-0 start where they were ranked pretty highly and it seemed like the outlets had finally started turning around, and that's always how it really goes for the Chicago Bulls, right? Like, once the national media starts coming around and saying, hey, these Bulls could be good. The same thing happened back in 2021-22 when we went on a 9-game win streak at that point in time, and teams I remember a lot of ESPN analysts were like, oh, these Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan was the worst signing, and then we went on that win streak and people started to look at it and say, hey, this Bulls team may be better than what we were expecting. Maybe it is. Maybe the sum of the parts are just better than we were expecting, and we need to give this team credit for where they were. And then almost immediately things started falling down fast for the Chicago Bulls at that point in time. And it's the story. As much as things stay the same change for the Chicago Bulls, they really stay the same. Every time things start getting good and start looking like they could be going in a good direction, it falls apart. Just like over the years, every time we've been close to getting to 500, it's fallen apart, right? And we've gone on losing streaks at that point in time. It's just what has happened for the Chicago Bulls this has happened for a while, basically since after the Derrick Rose era, right? Even that 3 Alphas team was a team that did something similar where people started finally looking at them saying, hey, maybe this team could be better than we were expecting, even with no shooting or anything like that. And then stuff started falling off. So, and I think it just goes to the unpredictable nature of the Bulls and how unsure anybody is of not only just the talent here, but coaching and the front office's ability to keep, making moves to keep the roster at a spot of being able to really perform at the level. ESPN, who has the Chicago Bulls ranked the highest at number 19, in there, they really didn't talk much about the Chicago Bulls but Modest Buzelis, right? They talked about this. Buzelis is averaging 19 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks, and 0.8 steals during the past 4 games. That's helped Chicago's offense get back to the level it began at the start of the season when it shared the ball and played at one of the fastest paces in the league, a style that helps Buzelis thrive. So they didn't even mention Josh Giddey averaging a near triple-double. They didn't even mention Coby White and his fourth quarters. He's been having big fourth quarters for the Bulls, or how the Bulls have employed a double big lineup that has definitely helped them at times to be better as far as matching up with other teams. They didn't mention any of that. It's more just focused on Modest Buzelis, which, like I said, it's funny how things kind of stay the same. The Bulls have basically reset and have been right back now where they are at the start of the season, where now outlets and stuff are starting to talk positively about Modest again and looking at Modest as that player that needs to make that next step for the Bulls after him going through quite a bit of a down stretch as well, where people kind of didn't look at him the same either, right? So it's just funny with that one, right? So that was ESPN and what they had to say. Bleacher Report also kind of focused on Modest Buzelis as well, calling Buzelis a breakout. and said that he's the biggest hope for the Chicago Bulls, which a lot of people did agree with at the start of the season. You had some Bulls fans that have come off that a little bit since then because of the way that Buzelis either has or has not played and how they view it, right? And, it did say this, though, is that they seem, with Bleacher Report, they didn't want to give the Bulls as much credit for a 4-0 stretch as what they did for the 7-1 stretch at the start of the season. And like I said, that just goes towards, again, how hesitant people are to really believe anything with the Bulls. And hell, I can't blame them. I've shared the same sentiments. How much over the last couple of days have you heard me say, like, hey, I want to be excited about this team, but I want to see it. I want to see it sustain more. Even so much that on yesterday's episode, I said I do want to see them. Well, I don't want to see them lose games, but I'm almost kind of hesitant. No matter how long this stretch of good play lasts, I'm kind of hesitant to give them any huge praise until I see, hey, how do they respond after two back-to-back losses? How do they respond after? Hopefully they don't go on a 3-game losing streak, but how do they respond to that? I'm almost waiting to see that, and that is such a weird place to be with the team that you love, because it's like I'm enjoying the winning, and I'm looking at the play that they've done on the court. They are sharing the ball more. They are, getting out back into that pace. They are attacking more. All these things are legitimate, but I'm almost hesitant to believe that it's going to stick again until I see, hey, how do you respond after a losing streak? And that's just where I sit down with it, right? And the NBA.com as well, which has the Chicago Bulls at 25th. They have teams like the Hornets, the Jazz, the Pelicans, and Brooklyn Nets all ranked above the Chicago Bulls, and they all have worse records than the Bulls. And that goes back again to the instability of this team and how much they do not sustain a level of play. I think that's just very telling in that, right? NBA, in talking about Chicago's placement, they said they looked at some of the stats. They were the one that talked about the stats of the team more, right? But they said this: only 4.8 of the Bulls' shots have come from mid-range, which would be the lowest rate in 30 seasons of shot location data. So, the Bulls completely eliminating the mid-range shot is something we've also talked about. But, it is what it is. The Bulls are ranked inconsistently because we're an inconsistent franchise with inconsistent performances, inconsistent coaches, and a front office that I don't even know if I can say they're inconsistent. They're pretty consistent with not doing shit for real, right? Like, don't get me wrong. They've made some moves. Trading for Vooch was a move. Getting DeMar Caruso Alonzo was a move in the offseason. We had no cap space. Then, a couple years later, getting Andre Drummond, that was a move, right? But, overall, it was just, this team is really set on its hands for a long period of time, and that has played into it, which we're going to get into more in the next segment. But overall, you just look at this power rankings, and not to say that the power rankings between those outlets are all usually the same. I didn't look at Yahoo Sports, so Yahoo Sports may be more in line with one of those than the other. But the fact that it is so wild, there's so much wild swings with that, I think just really comes down to which specific writer, how they view the Bulls overall, and of course the Modest Buzelis part of it. How much do they view? Because that seems to be the thing that really garners the Chicago Bulls, some positive praise at times, is how these outlets view Modest. And I can't really say that I blame them in that case either, right? So that's where things sit, though. That's where they are, and we'll see how that develops for this team and what comes next, I guess. So right now, the Bulls are on a winning streak. It's inconsistent, but they are on a winning streak, and let's see if they can lock in a style, not a style. I think the style is fine, but a level of play, and then that way we can really start figuring out what this team needs. The drastic swings, and that's where the playing up and down the competition comes in at. We got to stop those drastic swings. We got to get that shit together, right? But one of the players who I talked about, who has, in those articles did garner a lot of the praise in regards to that, is Modest Buzelis. Modest is averaging 19 points per game, 2.8 rebounds per game as well over this 4-game stretch for the Chicago Bulls. He's shooting the ball 52% from three and 68% overall from the field, and he's doing that while averaging almost 2 blocks per game as well. And this is a good stretch for Modest. The Bulls are 4-0 over that record. He's drawing 3.3 fouls per game as well, which is really good, as him getting to the free throw line at that rate. And this is due to Modest once again getting back to attacking. Modest is too fast, too long, and too athletic to not consistently be moving and cutting to the rim. Now, Modest is shooting 52% from three, so, take the threes, and his cutting ability is going to have to make defenders really think how they want to guard Modest when he's hitting the three that consistently. But as of right now, teams are going to give him that three because his three ball is one of the most inconsistent parts of his game. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that Modest did fall in the draft after being predicted to be a number 1 overall pick was because of the doubt in his three-point shooting. That is one of the reasons that slide in shooting and the question about spacing was always one of those questions that caused him to drop down the draft boards. Right now, he's always had really good form on the three-point shot. And the question then becomes about how consistent can Modest Buzelis really be with that three-pointer. And I know people have become disappointed with Modest because, they expected this big leap from Modest Buzelis. And I've kind of always tried to temper expectations on that. But Modest has grown this season. If you're looking at just what he did as a starter last year, for the Chicago Bulls, he averaged 13 points on 47% shooting from the field. He was taking 10 field goals per game, shots per game, and he averaged 4.5 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 1.1 blocks. That's what he did as a starter last year. And I want to focus on those because we know before he became a starter, his minutes were so wildly inconsistent that data can really throw it all over the place. This season, of course, being a starter all season, all 29 games he started that he's played, Modest Buzelis is averaging 14.3 points per game on 50% shooting from the field and 35.6% shooting from three-point line. He's averaging 5.1 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists, and 1.4 blocks per game. Modest is having a normal second season in the NBA. And I think a lot of people's expectations, because I think people had a tendency to view Modest as who he could become rather than who he is right now, had them have some wild expectations about Modest. But I want to be clear, Modest is still flashing that potential to eventually be a star. Now, there are some flaws to his game. Defensively, he's one of them, right? He gets pushed around. Jalen Johnson, in that last game against the Atlanta Hawks, I'll never forget it because of Modest, a player that is so confident. Jalen got past Modest, and he looked at him and said something. Modest kind of was just like, dang. I mean, Modest didn't even give him the face back that Modest usually does, right? Because, I think Modest got frustrated in himself as well. And then he twisted the ankle after, trying to make a big play, never got back in that game. He's listed as day-to-day right now, by the way, with that leg injury in the fourth quarter. And so right now he's listed as day-to-day. We probably won't have an update until sometime tomorrow. But Modest's second year has been a normal second year. And from a player that didn't start the entirety of their first year to now a player that is a full-time starter, the ebbs and flows are going to be there. I know people like to act like they don't expect that to be there, or they like to hold that against people. But it's just the reality of it. Modest Buzelis was always going to have this as a second year. Now, that doesn't mean that the highs couldn't have been higher, but there was always going to be some inconsistency in it. Modest also isn't even the third option on this team sometimes. So with all those said, I don't mind what Modest Buzelis is doing right now, and I think it's all about the potential. He's giving you better overall numbers on basically the same shots that he had as a starter. He had 10.2 shots per game last year as a starter. He's at still 10.5 this year, and the numbers are better. The efficiency has gotten better overall from the field. The three-point shot has taken a bit of a step, but the efficiency has gotten better. So that's who Modest is, and Modest is developing as a player. He's three percentage better on shooting his shot on the same shots. That's what you want to see from him as right now in a second-year player. And this is where the potential is always going to lie with Modest. I think for some people that the expectations outweighed the reality. And I think for Modest, we really have to allow the reality to set in as this is who, let him go through this journey of who he's becoming as a player. And then on the other side of that, eventually we will either know or he's going to hit that leap. But it just didn't come this year, and that's perfectly fine. But he's getting back into rhythm. And much like this team had a period of time of a down stretch, it's going to happen. If he can avoid having a full sophomore slump, if we can just look back, if we eventually look back on the season and say, yeah, Modest had about a 12 to 15 game slump in there in his sophomore year, but overall it was a solid year for Modest. That's good. If you look at the month of December for Modest, it was way more good than bad, right? He had only 2 games where he scored in single digits. Those are the 2 9-point games, back-to-back games against New Orleans and the first game against Cleveland. Other than that, he scored 20 points 4 times so far this month, in double digits every time but 2. And that's not a bad stretch for a player Modest Buzelis, because like I said, keep in mind, Josh Giddey's ahead of him on the depth chart. Well, not depth chart, in the priority list on offense. Coby White's ahead of him on the priority list on offense. There's still times where Nikola Vucevic is getting more shots than Modest Buzelis. So because of that, I kind of understand where Modest is. It's not the best. It's not saying that shouldn't be some concerns, but it's the reality of what a second year is for a player, and Modest is in that. But I think he's going to still have a really good second year, and then we're going to look for him to make a leap in either year 3 or year 4. I know Bulls fans want it now. They want the microwave of it. They want it now, but it's going to take a little bit of time. All right, moving on from that, though, I want to talk about this Coby White situation, right? We talked about on yesterday's episode how, Brett Siegel, Mark Stein, others really do believe that the guard market kind of starts with Coby White and the Bulls' ability or their openness to trade Coby White. And I hear that, right? And I want to say this, outside of whether they trade him or not, should they trade him or not really interested in having that conversation right now on this episode. This is more about Arturas and watching what Arturas does with this, right? Because here's the thing. This can go more wrong ways than it could go right for Arturas potentially. And let me lay this out, right? Let's say you trade Coby White. Via the deals that we've heard, I'm sorry, I know for some reason there are a lot of Bulls fans that are like severely down on Coby White, but from the deals that we've heard, none of those deals are worth a player that can score 20 points per game. They're just not. They're just not. Hearing Jonathan Isaac and some second-round picks ain't that at all. Donte DiVincenzo and Juan Berenger, it gets you closer, right? But reportedly, they don't really want to give up any picks in that either. But I think the Bulls fans have this thought process that the Bulls are going to trade Coby and get some huge haul back, like what was reported for Zach LaVine. It doesn't seem like that market's out there for Coby. So it can go wrong in the sense that Arturas just takes a bad deal. It can go wrong in the sense that Arturas takes no deal and Coby walks in the offseason. It can get worse in the sense that the Bulls don't trade him. They keep him. They give him his $30 million contract and then much like with Zach LaVine, figure out a couple years down the road, it's not going to work. This isn't about Coby, the talent or not. This is about Coby, the asset. And I think sometimes you have to separate that. Like some people, they'll hear, why are we going to trade a good player? It's not about them being good or bad. It's about the asset. And it's about how you protect your investment in that asset, right? And it's not like the Bulls have some control over Coby to force him to resign here. Yeah, they can offer him the money that he wants, but who's to say that another team isn't going to offer him that money as well and put him in a better situation, a winning situation with a stable front office? You got to think about that part of it too. There's a lot of different scenarios and only one that can end up right. And the only one that can, well, let me not say one that can end up right because you could trade him. It could end up working out for you. Let's say you do trade him for Donte and Berenger ends up a couple years down the road, turns into a two-way center that you can that you exactly need. All right, cool, right? So it can go some ways that go right. But let's say that you re-sign him and he ends up playing well, and we've seen what he can fit next to Josh Giddey, and that works out for you. But for a front office that has not strung together a lot of good decisions all in a row, and I think most people, no matter how you look at AK's decisions, you will be able to objectively say the stringing together and the balancing of several good decisions right one after another, it doesn't really come for them. And that's what this situation is really about when it comes to Coby White and where the Bulls sit right now. It's about what ends up working out in the long run, and does AK end up doing the right decision? Now, we won't know that initially. There will be some people that will tell you if the Bulls trade Coby, oh my God, it was the right decision. There'll be some people that will tell you, oh, they made the right decision by not moving him. There will be some people that will be ready to make that knee-jerk reaction right there. And the truth of the matter is, we won't know for sure. We won't know. The Bulls can get Rob Dillingham, Juan Berenger, and Donte DiVincenzo back, and they could still end up losing that trade. If Berenger never develops, Rob Dillingham never develops, and Donte DiVincenzo is like, the Bulls, get me up out of here in the season, right? So there's a world in which that happens. There's a world in which the Bulls get draft picks back, and the team is good with Coby, and those draft picks suck, and then AK misses again. So there's a lot of different scenarios with this, but it's going to tell us a lot about how AK views this team and how AK views what he's done before. He's a homegrown product here that we drafted him. He's been here, and I like that. But I think even the biggest Coby White fan can admit Coby White's future right now in Chicago is more murky than ever, with hearing that the Bulls are more open to trading Coby than they've ever been before. And we just got to kind of wait to see how this is going to go for this team and eventually go for Coby White as well. But let me know what you guys think on it down below as well. But we do got a couple of voicemails on this Christmas to get into. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? This is Shay. Look, for all these people that are saying they want Coby White gone, and hey, I'm going to even throw Pat Designer in the two because he's been talking a lot about Coby White trades. Now, look, here's a couple of reasons. One, he is a big part of our scoring. Two, we're not going to rebuild him because AK ain't going to do that. Three, we ain't necessarily going to, even if we do trade it for But even if we do try to pull a pick, we ain't gonna get no necessarily top pick or star in that draft, especially based off of the type of player Coby White is. Look, I understand that y'all, that if a good deal comes up for Coby White, we should entertain. I understand he's a free agent and all the other bullshit, but let's face it, y'all. You already have a guy like Josh Giddey. Coby White fits this timeline. And not to mention, I mean, you do, and for all y'all that's yelling, oh, let's keep Ayo over him. Hey, man, every good team needs a solid bench piece. You know what I'm saying? Now, I know. Now, a bunch of teams, players, these are players that can put some teams over the edge, but for the most part, this team actually works together. I feel like if we get a new system and maybe a new coach, I feel like we'll be in a much better spot. But for y'all that just want to just move these guys just to move them, or just to say you want another guy to start, man, I feel like it's just silly. Anyway, hey, tell me what you think. Peace.
I hear you, Shay, and I agree for sure. Like I said many times before, I would love to see Coby White stay a Chicago Bull. That's if you just ask Hayes, what do you want? I want Coby to stay in the Chicago Bulls uniform. But like I said in the last segment, I understand that it comes down to the asset, fit, money. All these things are questions to ask when it comes in regard to Coby. So it's so much more than what people say. Like some people say, oh, we shouldn't keep Coby. There's no way we should pay Coby. Coby sucks. Those are the people that I'm like are stupid, right? But outside of that, there are legitimate questions about team building that you have to ask in this. And so when you run a team, you have to look at the value. You have to look at the asset. You have to look at those type of things. And I guess we'll see how AK and Eversley view this and what decision they decide to make at this trade deadline in regards to Coby White. But I will say this, do not be surprised if Coby White is the next player that Bulls fans beg to be traded. And then once we do move him in 2 years, they're going to be like, I can't believe we gave up Coby White for that. I'm just saying. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one is from TJ.
Yo, what's up, Paige? It's TJ from the low end. So, I'm basically calling because I wanted to ask you a question as well as basically two questions. First question is, I'm looking at Modest stats and, his increase in stats from this year to last year. Looking at it, it's nothing too crazy. So, speaking on him talking about he wanted to win a Most Improved Player award, I don't see it being that likely unless he can keep up this 20 plus per game, point per game scoring. And that brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is I wanted to ask you what's like something you want to see from this team, like whether it's realistic or unrealistic, whether it's a player or the team as a whole. Me personally, I want to see Modest go on like a stretch of multiple 20-point per game games. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to see him have multiple games like that and just keep up this scoring tear, especially since he's just not going to stick anybody. He's just not going to guard anybody. Well, he's not going to stand in front of anybody. He'd be getting blown out like damn near every possession. Like, it'd be crazy, bro. But, yeah. And another thing I would want to see from Modest in regards to just his scoring, I suppose, I want him to see his floor raised when it comes to scoring. I feel like it has raised overall over this year, but I want to see it, hit another step. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want him to be like at least, for a fact, at least every single game he gonna get at least 10 points, like 3 rebounds, an assist or two, and like maybe 1 or 2 blocks. Like, I just want him to get a stat line that we know we can count on Modest for at least this. And I feel like right now we can't really count on him for certain, for anything, in my opinion, because he's so hot and cold. Like, he either going to do super great at some things or he's going to be pretty bad at some things. But yeah, man, that's all I wanted to say. Let me hear what you think. Peace.
Modest definitely has not played at the level of most improved player of the year. He's not. And that is what it is. I think saying that he always gets blown by is a bit of an exaggeration, but he does. And blown by he gets overpowered. That's more of a thing than him getting blown by. He needs to get that together. And I just think, like I said earlier, Modest is taking more of a normal second-year step than this huge leap that some people wanted to see from Modest Buzelis. And I just don't know that some players don't hit it to year 4. Look at Cade really hit it in year 4, right? Cade Cunningham, that is. So I think sometimes players take longer than others. And I think rather than look at the year in the NBA, it comes around the age of 23. That's usually it. Between that 23, 24-year-old season, that's where you start seeing players really make that leap nowadays. And we'll see. Modest still got 2 years before he gets there. He just turned 21. So we could be waiting a while. We could be into because of how young he was, we could be waiting into year 5 for Modest to make that, which I know Bulls fans will going to be pulling their hair out if that ends up being the case. But, we got to just wait and see it out. We got to play it out. And sometimes these things take time. But that's it for today's episode, man. I appreciate y'all for always tapping in with the show and showing love. Always keep the conversation going in the comment section as well. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below on where you stand with Modest, Coby, and the front office, because I already know Bulls Twitter is going to be fighting about this one if they can. But until next time, make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe out there, go Bulls, and always see red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breakout Media.